Good morning. I had the opportunity to interview Matías Espejo, a close friend of mine and founder and CEO of Anticipa 24/7, but let's not waste any time and get right into it. Anticipa 24/7 was born when Matías was studying at Bocconi University in Milan, as he claims that studying abroad provided him with a wider vision of international markets and opportunities. With that in mind, he started off by asking himself what was being done elsewhere that could be replicated in Peru, and as an answer to that question, he saw similar businesses existed in other countries, well, his leading example being Mexico, and that these companies were successful. It is important to know that Mexico has a very similar economy and social life as Peru has, as the average Mexican lives his day-to-day life as the average Peruvian. He then proceeded to conduct some market research and found out that around 75% of Peruvians do not make it to the end of month with their current salaries, and that 56% of Peruvians have no access to traditional banking. As a consequence, a great portion of them have no option but to rely on informal lenders in order to afford basic expenses. So, recognizing this gap and this mass of people who needed liquidity, he launched the service. And as to what the business actually does, they provide salary advances as their main service. Anticipa 24/7 has now been running for around 4.5 years and currently offers four financial products as services based on the needs heard from the clients. As side information, he founded the business as a solo entrepreneur while studying online at Bocconi during the COVID pandemic in 2020, and his current headcount is of 7 employees. Now, moving on to the TAM, SAM, and SOM. To define these, Matias always and only considers employees who earn a salary and are on a payroll. These are the two key factors to his service. Now, he describes his total addressable market as the entirety of Latin America. As for its size, this sector consists of around 146 million employees on a payroll. Then he narrows down to the service available market, now accounting for geographic and legal constraints, to focus solely on Peru. Here, the number of employees on the payroll is around 5.8 million. And finally, as to the serviceable obtainable market, he simply defines it as a market share he currently owns, and that's the 25,000 employees who he has clients today. Now, moving on to the channels to market. The go-to-market strategy is a B2B2C. What does this mean? This means that he first approaches a business as a single unit, and through that business is that he gains access to its employees on its payroll. Up to now, but especially during the early stages, much of the work done was being done by himself. As I mentioned, he founded the business as a solo entrepreneur, knocking on businesses' doors, speaking to managers through his own network, and hoping for them to refer him to the HR departments of their own businesses. Another key channel for them is LinkedIn, as he reaches out to the managers who will grant him access, the access he needs to reach his target audience. Considering how he delegates tasks, there are presently 2 employees fully dedicated to prospecting for clients, and one of their main tools is, as mentioned, LinkedIn. Additionally, last year they got to advertise themselves on major Peruvian TV and radio channels, these being Willax and PBO with Philip Butters, well, PBO with Philip Butters, but it's the same, to boost their name and position themselves as top of mind. Essentially, these major platforms make him gain exposure to potential customers. And last but definitely not least, another method to reach out to his customers is his own network. Matias has talked about how important it was for him to to speak to people who he had never seen before, and the struggle it was to sell an idea to people looking down at him as a simple 20-year-old student. In his eyes, customer outreach is all about perseverance, as given that in the initial stages he got a lot of doors slammed right at his face, but that he shouldn't give up, and that led him to where he is now. Just a couple of weeks ago, and as a fun fact, he signed a business with 500 employees on its payroll, and this was one of the businesses that slammed the door when he first started. Moving on to competition, there are about four similar businesses in Peru, with the main one being a Spanish organization called Payflow. Payflow currently functions in Spain, Peru, and Colombia, and compared to Anticipate, they had a much faster growth and speed to market, considering that they were able to raise a much more significant amount of money at launch. The difference between them is the salary advancement method each opts for. Firstly, Anticipa 24/7 charges the employee for using the service and only does so if the service is used. There is no charge if the service is not used, neither for the employee nor the organization. And the salary advancement method is quite simple. Since the day first of sin, sorry, since the first day of the month, a customer can be advanced up to 70% of their monthly salary. Now, on the other hand, Payflow has a different business model and revenue stream. Payflow charges the organization a subscription fee per employee, whether they use the service or not. If the business is enrolled with them, they are charged a subscription fee. As for the business model, they worked with accrued salaries. This means that each day a customer accumulates a fraction of their total monthly salary. So to make this clearer, if my monthly salary was of 900 soles, that's Peruvian currency, I would be worth around 30 soles per day. If I request the salary advance on the fifth day of the month, I can receive a maximum of 150 soles, which would be 5 days worth of work. Not anymore, as no more days have passed and accrued by. Now, their main tool for customer validation was market research and readily available information from close sources. Matthias didn't think much about launching the idea, so he took the information provided from external sources and tried out his own application of the service. As said before, Mexico and Peru are quite similar socially and economically, and his friend had proven that there was significant demand for the service over there. Specifically, this was in Monterrey, which is one of Mexico's largest cities. So what Matthias decided was he was going to take a leap of faith with this information, complemented by his own market research, as illustrated in the numbers shown in the slides before, and discovered that, in fact, there is a market gap or niche of people that was not being attended to and needed some sort of solution tailored for them specifically. Going back to the launch stage thought process, he didn't overthink, and one of the main reasons for this was that this was happening during COVID. If the business was doomed to fail, then he would simply close it and finish off his studies. But at the end of the day, all of this worked in his favor, given that plenty of people were left unemployed or had their salaries cut, especially in their target market, so the service became of even greater importance. Now, to the business persona. Anticipate's ideal persona is pictured as a 30-year-old male who earns between 2,000 and 2,500 soles per month. That would be equivalent to around, well, 550 to 650 soles per month. Sorry, euros per month. And this person has a family and more specifically has children. As to their professional life, he's someone with a field job. For example, he can be a receptionist, the person you speak to at the sports store to sell you the shoes, a bus driver, or in general, someone with a manual labor. Hobby-wise, this person has no time to work out or exercise and has barely enough time to sit down and have dinner at the end of the day, as this is someone focused on maintaining their family with the limited resources they possess. If Matthias was to describe his company's USP in three terms, this would be flexible, cheap, and diverse. I then asked him if he could sell this company to me specifically and try to win me over the competition, and he said the following. If you come with me, you have immediate liquidity from the first of the month. You have no conditions as well as accrued salaries make you, just bearing in mind the 70% cap. And the idea of my solution is being able to handle a necessity you have whenever you may have it, not saying, well, that I'll be able to cope with it in maybe 5 or 10 days from now. You'll be able to cover your need because um, that's what I offer, immediate liquidity. He concluded by saying how he has more options or services than other competitors, and he's working on implementing even more financial solutions. But I'm not gonna go in depth in those because they are not the core business or the focus of this presentation. When it comes to lead generation, wait, sorry. When it comes to lead generation strategies, Matthias makes an emphasis on the importance of offering his services whenever possible when meeting someone who has a business. On the early stages, it was all up to him to get in contact with people, but now that has changed. He has hired people always older than him, so being between 30 and 50 years old, with large networks. That's his main idea of who he hires. He does this given that older people often have experience and knowledge that he can benefit from. And these people are in charge of reaching out, knocking on doors, emailing, texting, and so on. So essentially, these people are in charge of setting for him. When asked about, for example, the use of ads, Matias said that he tried it out, but it didn't provide him with the best results. And this is because his target customers are not those who will often hop on social media in their spare time. So their exposure to these online ads would be super limited and essentially a waste of money. So yeah, he's away from ads. Overall, his main strategy is getting direct contact with business owners via his own or his team's network. Now, to measure performance, Anticipate's North Star metric or index used as a main focus to evaluate growth and prospect future performance is the number of users who actively use the platform. If the business has 100 employees on its payroll, Matthias considers what percentage of them actively make use of the platform, and he tracks this on a monthly basis using market indexes as thresholds and standards to evaluate performance. For him, between 20 and 25% of active users suggests good performance. And as to why this is important, Matthias has come to realize that his peak moment is now, that the business has just gone uphill since he first started. He learns on a daily basis, making him more informed, more nurtured, and more knowledgeable by the end of each month. Um, and to better evaluate Anticipate's performance, he's planning on getting more people hired for them to offer a variety of perspectives on how to conduct business and advise him on growth strategies. He also acknowledged another important metric, but not the North Star metric, the most important one, that would come to be the churn rate. And um, this would lead him to understand how many people stop using his service. Uh, and diving deeper into this, understanding why people stop using his service would make him able to implement solutions to avoid that from happening in the future. Now, wrapping up, I would like to share some key ideas we talked about during the interview. And his life motto is El que la sigue la consigue, which translates to if you keep going, you'll get there. He also said that if anyone was to take the role of an entrepreneur, he or she should not care. He's been close to giving up, well, more than once, because he spent over 3 years working every single day without seeing any returns, where all of the expenses came from his own pocket. And naturally, he compared himself to friends who earned their own salaries at corporate jobs, while he was working much more intensively without any rewards. We must accept that doors are shut at the initial stages, and in his experience, support from family and friends was key to his success. His father was a great influence, and he recalls him saying that he was going to regret if he let the business idea go. Time passed, and now it is him who pays the salary of 8 people. So ultimately, it's about finding the right moment, because once the project starts walking, it's all for the better, and the effort, commitment, and tears start to pay off. Thank you very much.